negativity. Deep down, I'm hopeful and optimistic, and I believe that we still have the biggest economy in the world. I know that we the best universities, and Americans are very hardworking, and it's my view is with the right kind of leadership in Washington, someone who understands the economy and will be equipped to find our place in the new global economy, what our role as the United States will be, and how we will work, and how we'll fit into that economy, and with good-paying, reliable, long-term jobs, affordable housing, a safe country. I think it can happen, but it's going to take some real leadership. So that's what
okay. Well, you've identified basically the 4 or 5 issues that just about every candidate has identified: jobs, foreclosure rate, the oil disaster, Social Security. Let's take one at a time. What ideas would you bring to the table that would be different from your opponents? Starting with jobs.
Okay, that's a good question. On jobs, look, I think that initially we don't have a jobs problem. We have a jobs crisis. I mean, we don't have. I mean, I was reading the New York Times yesterday that we have. And this Florida, over 1 million people. The New York Times is reading about 1.4 million 99ers, people who have been employed for 99 weeks and more. I was reading about some poor woman who was moving into a motel, right, with the money she's using from selling her furniture, from her living room furniture. A woman who was making $56,000 a year in an executive position just 2 years ago, before she lost that job. So we have a jobs crisis. So the only way we're going to solve the jobs crisis is crisis management, which means it's not going to happen from Marco Rubio tax cuts, and we have to have.
Well, what's your idea? Okay, we know what his idea is, but I want to hear what
lots of ideas. Okay. We need an example. We know that we need to end our dependence on foreign oil. We're right now buying $300 billion a year of foreign oil. We know that the unemployed people in Florida, a lot of them are construction workers, not auto workers like in Michigan. So it's very logical to me that when I get here, one of the first things I'll do is push for an investment tax credit program for insulating and weatherizing homes all over the country. And I think in Florida we could be a big beneficiary. We'll save money on our energy costs. At the same time, we'll put back to work construction workers. Other things we can be doing, there's no lending. I talk to small businesses around Florida, and there's no, those that want to expand can't. There's no loans. They say that banks are not making any loans at all. And I've stood up to the biggest banks before when I've had to protect my own investments, and I'll stand up to them again. And to me, it infuriates me that we as a country are saying to the banks, you can borrow at 0% of the discount window, and then what they're doing is buying government-backed securities, at 3 and 4%, and just keeping the spread, and then paying themselves bonuses with the exorbitant profits. And to me, it's nonsensical, it's insulting, and I think that we have to put pressure on banks that were borrowing at 0%, that they have to put it back into our communities for home loans.
Yeah, how do you put the pressure on them? What do you do as a senator from Florida? What do you do?
In the banking committee, you pass regulations that require the banks lend a certain amount of their money into small businesses in communities around throughout the country, but certainly here in Florida. So we need to get lending going. We need to do programs like that with like the program mentioned with the weatherization tax credits. We also need to do like a payroll tax holiday. We've talked about that, but it has to be expanded. Payroll tax holiday. So if a company adds jobs to its payroll, any of the new employees, you don't have to pay payroll tax on those employees. I mean, we're not getting the payroll tax anyway as a country, so why not get people jobs? Another thing, I've gone right around here to one of these jobs bank programs where the government, this program is running out, but what happens, somebody's been unemployed for more than a year, and they're hired by a company, and the company makes just a representation that they're going to keep them on long term, then the government will pay 95% of that person's salary. Well, it's not paying the unemployment benefit anymore, so in a way we're already paying a big percent of this, so why not put them back to work? It gets the money flowing in the economy, they feel better about themselves. So the point is, we need to go with 100 programs like that, not 3. And I think that's what I'll fight to do.
If you would win, you'd be one of the senators from Florida. There's 435 members in the House, and 100 or so in the Senate. It's a relationship business. To get all this stuff done, you need the votes. What in your background, you don't have any government experience that I can tell. You had one race. What in your background shows that you've got that relationship building acumen?
I can say this. I started with absolutely nothing. I mean, I was, my dad was a textile machinery dealer in Massachusetts, and he lost his livelihood, and my parents moved to West Palm Beach 40 years ago. And my mom had to take on a job as a waitress to help make ends meet, and my dad bought a vending degree. Right around these areas, we spent a little further west, we used to go to motels. farms to build the vending machines. And I worked my way through Johns Hopkins, busboy at the Baker's Hotel during my vacations, checked IDs outside the gym, taught Hebrew school 3 days a week in Baltimore. Then I went on the road, worked in a telemarketing business, went to Harvard Business School, got my MBA, worked 2 jobs then. And then I've worked my whole life, and I can tell you I've had enormous success. I've had thousands of employees. I've owned apartment buildings. I've had tens of thousands of tenants. So I'm a relationship person. You can't build the success I've had. You can't achieve that success without having relationships. That's my greatest strength, is putting people together and making them work, and making them work to a common goal. And I think that I can tell you that one thing about Washington, which will be one of my primary focuses when I get there, will be getting both sides to work together. Because when I was at Harvard Business School, my congressman was Tip O'Neill and my president was Ronald Reagan. 2 complete polar opposites. And I think Americans loved the fact that during the day these guys would beat each other up on the floor of the House and in meetings. But at night they could hang out together and have some drinks and dinner together and be buddies. And I think the problem is, I think since Newt Gingrich, my understanding from talking to Senate members, and I know a lot of Senate members. I'm the biggest supporter of the DSCC, which is the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. I'm in the majority trust. And so when I go to conferences with other U.S. Democratic senators, they share with me their frustration. They said, since when Newt Gingrich got involved as the speaker, he said, everyone started leaving weekends, no one was around, no one wanted to be having to do with each other, and then it just exacerbated what we now have, which is between bloggers and cable TV, the polarization of the left and the right. And to my goal will be, and I don't know if I'll be successful, my goal will certainly be to try to get Republicans and Democrats to be friendly with one another again, and just try to get more things done. That's the biggest problem. The problem is not the Democrats and the Republicans don't get along with themselves. The problem is one side trying to beat up the other all the time.
You talk about being fed up and frustrated with what's going on in Washington. Does that include the Obama administration and some of their actions?
No, look, not really. No, I think the president's doing a good job. I mean, look, I think the president's done what he said he was going to do. He said, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get health care and I'm going to get financial regulation. I mean, he's passed 2, very substantive, remarkable bills in a difficult, it was in a very difficult situation. I mean, the health care bill almost didn't make it, and we would have a lot of Americans would have been much worse off if he didn't pass. So I think he's got that done. Look, it would be nice if unemployment had gone down from, down, but I mean, the fact that we've gone from losing 750,000 jobs a month to creating 81,000 a month, was I think what we created last month. To me, in 18 months, that's a pretty big improvement. And the fact that, he's inherited 2 wars, which he appears to be winding down, which he said he would do. So I think, look, Americans aren't happy because Americans want instant results, but you're not going to clean up a decade of overconsumption and 8 years of George Bush deficits. Remember, 7 of 8 years, when George Bush became president, he had a $200 billion surplus, and Bill Clinton had 3 years of surpluses, and what he left us was 7 years of deficits and a $1.3 trillion deficit. Now, the Republicans saying, let's go back to the days of George Bush. To me, it's such a ridiculous argument because we know what we produced, we know where we were, we know where we were in January 2009 when the president took over. So I think the president, under difficult circumstances, is doing an excellent job.
On deficit, the prognosis is $1 trillion deficits almost through the end of the decade, and eventually somewhere in the national debt about $23 trillion. Does that bother you at all?
Of course it does. I think what American wouldn't be frightened by that? I mean, this is not my, look, this won't be my deficit, this will be my son's deficit, and his friend's deficits. I mean, how are we going to get rid of this? And I think that, but the fact is, 5 years ago we had an $8 trillion national debt. Now we have a $13 trillion national debt. This didn't happen since the president just took over. He didn't create this debt. And the fact is that what we're bringing in, we're bringing in 2.2 trillion in revenue. We're spending 3.6 trillion. I've looked at how we're spending our money. There aren't a lot of places to cut, frankly, right now. I mean, I'm not just cutting Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. That's 40%. We can probably cut some defense spending when we get out of these wars, but it's not going to be enough to get rid of. I mean, if we're lucky, it's $100 to $200 billion. And I think the only way we're going to get out of this deficit is putting Americans back to work. And I think that's what it's going to take to do. And look, I don't have a magic wand. I've been in business my whole life. I've created jobs. I know that to create a job, it's not something you just think you want to do. You have to basically, as a guy who's been an employer, if I want to create jobs, I have to think, how am I going to get